It's all about that star power.
Stay tuned because you know Reec is going to have one of your favorite stars with him today.
Stay tuned.
That's right, man. We are back at it. Your boy Reec is live on the radio. Reec Show Live. Shout out to CNVA 107.5 up in Charlotte. Shout out to all our affiliates in Michigan, Indiana, and Miami. Right here, right now. You heard the special guest sounder. That means we got somebody in the building. Somebody's story needs to be told. And this brother right here is doing something that this ain't doing in America or across the globe. We're going to find out that more, how he got started. We got Jason P, a.k.a. Penn, in the building of B Condoms. Hit the hype bell for him. What's up, bro?
How you doing, man? Appreciate you having me on here, Reec.
Oh, absolutely, man. Let's just jump in. Let's just jump into it. We know you're a consummate. Oh, you got a lot going. Attorney. So when I got the first text, it says, "Hey, we got the condom attorney," and I was like, "Hold on, I got to get him up here." What is a condom attorney? That's like misleading. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So let's get it going because I went to Morehouse for a second. Okay. Finished Southern Poly. I know. Okay. Yeah. And for the HB, got a great initiative. Trump had "Make America Great Again." You got "Make America Safe Again." Let's talk about this, man.
Yeah, nah. We're definitely where that kind of rubber meets the road, right? Like,
hold on. We're gonna be hitting this high button a lot. He said rubber meets the road. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so my name's Jason Panda. I run B Condoms, which is the only black-owned condom company basically in the world. Started, we're about 10 years deep. We're really kind of making our move right now. In terms of being able to kind of be readily available in like a lot of retail chains all across the country, right? Like we're about 10 years in. Quietly, we move about 40 or 50 million condoms a year through government.
Not quietly. Hit the high button. It's not quietly. That's a lot of rubber hitting the road. I'm not going to lie to you. Oh, wait. Say those numbers.
Yeah, we move about 40 or 50 million condoms a year through government. Okay,
now let's have a government. Places that talking health, right?
Yeah,
a lot of things to do with
health. Yeah.
Sexual acting. We'll just put it
sexual
like
wellness.
Sexual wellness.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No. So here goes what happens. Let's say you go into a health department, you go into a clinic, you go into some of these kind of like schools or whatever all across the country. They buy those condoms that you get for free.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Somebody
cutting the check. Yeah. So see the way it worked out, like when I started my business, a lot of times people don't know kind of where to follow the money. Right. So a lot of times people will see convenience stores, they'll see big retail. And it's hard kind of like if you're kind of either underfunded and you just don't got a huge team. So one of the things I was able to see is that, we were the only black-owned condom company. So it's like, why not go into government contract? Yeah.
You have a good product.
Yeah, no.
I don't want people to get it confused. I want you to get it because he's black. No, he has a good product. That's been started testing and stuff.
Yeah. So and I'll tell you, like the product is kind of what I'm most proud of. Like I spend a lot more on my product than anybody else, right? So like our condoms, they're odorless, they're vegan friendly, they're tasteless. Like
how you get
organic?
How you get? And they made it broccoli.
No. Like, and I'll tell you because that's one of the key differences between like us and everybody else. Right, so like what happens, I don't know if you ever seen kind of like a rubber tree. So you'll have like rubber plantations, and it's kind of like syrup, like the same type of way they'll tap syrup. You go into like a little straw, is how they tap rubber. All right, and then what happens is during the manufacturing process, a lot of our competitors they'll use additives, right? Like let's say casein, glycerin, gluten, parabens, nitrosamine. All of these other things during like the manufacturing process that don't not only make the condom a little bit weaker, but these are animal-based products because it lowers manufacturing. So you got to use less all natural rubber. All right. So one of the things that I do is I was like, because I kind of knew our positioning as the only black-owned kind of like first kind of mover in this space, I was like, I want to invest a lot more in our actual product, but also just make sure it's a lot more clean, healthy, because at the end of the day, health is wealth.
Unfortunately, but
man,
can't come.
Yeah.
And fine too.
Yeah. And that's for sure. So what happened once I knew I kind of had a good product, then it became to kind of like, how do you build the business, right? Like one of the things you said, my background was in law, right? Like I used to do biopharmaceutical patent law, right? So, you know, you come up with an invention, somebody comes up with an invention. It's like, yo, how do I protect my ideas, right? But within that, my undergraduate major was in biology. So I used to do like a lot of like HIV and AIDS patents, a lot of kind of like pharmaceutical patents, like kind of like that big drug, right? I moved from that space. So when I looked at it, and I had a business before this that failed, right? And one of the reasons that it failed was, you know, lack of funding. Everybody talks about like, you know, how black companies can't get the right money, banks, all of that type of stuff. And 1,000%. So when I looked at it, I wanted a company that would be kind of focused on the black community, right? Where I could work within black, stay within black, just be true to myself. Kind of like also be able to create goodwill and move the culture forward, right? So when I looked at it, I was like, you know, and I wanted something that was going to be recession proof, right? Because my last business, right?
Let me tell you one thing. Folks in a good mood or bad mood, they gonna be getting it in.
So what it came down to, and it's kind of crazy, right? But the two ideas that I had were caskets and condoms. Right, and caskets, because like if you look historically in the black community, all of the funeral homeowners were always some of the richest people, kind of like in the community. And I looked and I was like, but who's moving the product through there? Because I'm a product guy at the end of the day, right? But one of the things I looked at is I couldn't move as many caskets as I could move condoms. I could move 1.5 million condoms through a container, whereas I could probably only move 30 to 60 caskets.
Of the other product. You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
Yeah,
like,
for sure. Nah,
right.
1,000%. And on top of that, like, you got to think, like, I don't come from an uber religious household, and I'm not kind of connected within that church community and all of that. So when I looked at it, I was like, yo, imagine I saw, like, I think my gift is I can see kind of like a process before we get there. Right. And I was like, yo, there's an opportunity if we're able to mix kind of like that nightlife, that cool, that sexiness, that hip hop lifestyle with the impact. Right. So now think about it. Like if we think about like teenage pregnancy, HIV and AIDS, STDs, we're overly indexing in terms of the health disparities. Right. So I was like, imagine you can connect that community side with that nightlife side and move our culture right down that middle. Right. And that was kind of like the genesis of the idea. And I spoke with my mom about it because she used to run a detoxing nonprofit, right, in Boston. So during the crack epidemic, you know, it was really hitting hard in the streets. She had kind of like one of the only black-owned ones in Massachusetts, where I was from, right? All black staff, that whole type of way. So I always had kind of like a mentality for like black ownership. She didn't own the nonprofit, but she ran it, right? You can have a whole black staff, right?
You have something.
Yeah.
A lot of times and it's like we may not be able to see it firsthand, but if somebody sees you look like talk like swag is like
like they can get my experience and it's real, right? And I think one of the reasons, like early on, people ask me like, you know, why isn't it you don't do a nonprofit even though we do a lot of community work? Like I done gave away 2 million condoms this year. Right, like just straight to the streets, whether it's barbershops, events, music, beauty salons, like kind of connecting our product with the culture. Yeah. But the reason why I didn't do it as a nonprofit was because first, as a nonprofit, somebody's always got to finance your impact, right? So you're always forced to tap things, right? Like there's somebody else's initiatives, their mind may change, your pockets are cut short. And I saw that, you know, blacks spend more than $500 million a year in condoms, right? Just our people. Right, so I'm like, yo, imagine the type of impact and the type of business you can be able to build if you're able to just own that part of the game. So people are like, you know, why don't you go and crossover? Well, let me just focus on my people. It's a market for it. Yeah. Exactly.
But you're focused. Right now, we're Jason Panda. Just tuning in to Reec Show Live. Shout out to everybody on the live stream, YouTube, of course, through our affiliates up in Charlotte. We're talking about his intro into this bit. We joke about it, but this is some dope stuff. This market open and be able to position yourself to do what you want. Yeah. You want to do it. After you said I had a better business. I had to get back on.
Yeah.
Definitely a story that needs to be on Netflix and stuff. You know what I mean? For real. I mean, it really should be.
I appreciate that because I think one of the things like why I'm so passionate about this is it kind of like not only it's funny because people become shocked when they first hear about it, like a black-owned condom company, right? Like
somebody on the box like this.
Yeah.
You know what you mean, though.
Because and I think one of the things that I'm trying to do, right, is kind of really show lanes that we can be able to move into that don't necessarily need kind of like we can own our own lane, we can own our own culture, right? And I think one of the things that I always tell people about, which is why I'm happy, like right now, right, for our first, we're 10 years deep, right? We were never able to get into Walmart, CVS, Rite Aid, all of these others. They just weren't letting us in, all right? And then it's interesting because, like, let's say, like, from a black male perspective, I always got to kind of separate kind of within our culture because black women, y'all are winning, right?
I mean,
Black women been winning and
they up with 40% education, almost take 30% more than crazy.
Yeah, and where I was from, like my high school, like we didn't have as much money, like we have old books or whatever, 70% black, high poverty rate, or whatever. Right, so a lot of times you don't really see opportunities outside of the streets or basketball or whatever, right? And I had like a mind, and I was never able to run as fast, or like I never had no crazy jump shot. I never wanted to be a rapper, but I got our culture, right? And what I found was when I didn't fit within that corporate side, I was like, well, what can I build, but still be able to kind of like just be true to myself, right? And that's why now, like post the protests and everything else, what I see is there's a huge window of opportunity, right, for black companies to be able to get this bigger piece of the pie. And that's like our first retailer was Walmart, right? Walmart makes up 25% of all condom sales in the United States. If y'all live near Walmart, let them know, we're tapping in, right? And what I think it's also interesting is I'm doing this independent. Right, like I look at kind of like, and I love what they're doing. Like you look at James Lindsay with Rap Snacks, him and Master P. But outside of them, I don't know many other black men that are kind of like running throughout this lane to be able to open up these doors with where the real money is. Right, like Rihanna becomes a billionaire, Kanye becomes billionaires, not off of music, off of product. Right, and I think that's the next link to our culture and our experience where we're really going to be able to create wealth.
Because we're no longer.
Yeah.
America.
Yeah. So and I look at like also how many jobs I can not only create directly, but how many vendors we're going to be able to use. How many stations, later on we can begin to finance or fund. How, like you create a whole economic system. Like even one of the things, like I just launched like a HBCU kind of campus ambassador tour, right? Not a tour, but a campus ambassador program. Yeah. Like for me, like, we work with Planned Parenthood or whatever. They got 300 college chapters, right? But only 5 of them are on black campuses, like under 10, right? So it's like, who's really, if we're not putting the money behind it, who's really moving towards making sure our experience is better amongst our people?
Safer.
For a safer, like, yeah.
Like you just said it, 5.
Mm-hmm.
College.
Yeah.
Why is the numbers
and anytime you're relying upon people outside your culture is not going to be primary first and foremost.
We saw that with, like you just said, underfunded, right? Had a guest here yesterday.
Yeah.
And then we go back to segregation, like $10 was split, $1 was like that.
And I think that's the bigger, like, I'm huge on black business, right? And I think I'm big on it because, what happened was when we desegregated, like, just the overall, like, economic system, I don't think we realized how much us going and kind of supporting white businesses was going to cause the breakdown of that black business. Like, not only are you killing a business, there's a CEO, there's a finance guy, there's a PR person. There's an accountant, a marketing, you got an attorney, you got all of these other systems and all of these other positions and knowledge that's passed down from one generation to the kids, right? Because all of these people got families, right? So when you see, 70% of black businesses fail within 5 years of, of integration, right?
Figure out why.
We got to figure out why, right? And it all comes down, like, at the end of the day, we live in a capitalistic system where cash is king, right? Like, and if you ain't got the money to put behind it, you'll never be as empowered. Like, don't get me wrong, I love protests, and I think that we all have kind of like our role to play, but you need capital.
Hey, look, two biggest they started talking about financially equal. That's when the bullet got took out.
Yeah, that's when the bullet comes.
Gotta look. Right now, Jay kind of scooped us a little bit about history while we're talking about business too, but it all kind of
Yeah. So with me, the reason why I also am kind of like passionate about the condom side as well is like, think about nightlife, right? How Puff was able to disrupt liquor, right? With Ciroc. You look how like Damon John was the first one to kind of disrupt clothing, right? You think about the clubs, you think about the music, like whether it's Barry Gordy and all of those, right? At the end of the day, people are still having sex, right? So it's kind of like that last kind of parameter.
Things actually are the
leader.
You know that. You're gonna look fly, you might have a little spirits in the system. You're gonna set the mood with the music. What's the fourth step?
you gotta close, right? Everybody looking for their
clothes.
Yeah.
One way or another. Right. So you found the market in that.
Yeah.
And wow, that's crazy. Right now we kind of talk about condoms. And you get this product, right? And you're like, okay, I got this idea. How much of patent attorney, right? That help you?
None. Yeah. And here goes. If it were to help me, I think I'm not intimidated by books or like processes or like just legal writing, right? Like, not that I'm writing anything or anything like that, but you got to think what happened was when I first brought my first kind of shipment in, right? Like my first, when I literally say I started it out of like the mud, like my first warehouse was my apartment, right? Like I made $200,000 my last year doing law. I left to make zero, right? And I made zero for a few years, kind of like I was like Noah's Ark, kind of just building my own brainchild. Everybody looked at me crazy. People thought I was trying to do Bang Bros, like I was trying to be, X videos and all of that. But it wasn't what I was doing. But what happened is, I made a lot of mistakes. I had a good product because initially the first thing I did is I visited 16 different manufacturers overseas, right? Like a lot of times people look at like, the Frank Lucases of the world. And I knew in order for me to compete on cost and for me to really understand, I needed a direct connect, right? So like, exactly. So the only way I knew I was going to be able to get that is I went to Thailand, I went to China, I went to Malaysia, solo dolo, right? Went on Google, just downloaded. I was like, made it seem like I had this big old company, right? And I put a list of 16 of these folks together. And one by one, I went and visited. And each one, I began to learn more and more and more. So the first one, I was super green, right? What's this look like? How do y'all test it? How do you distinguish like good condoms from bad? Like, where's it come from, right? So, you go from that first one to the second one. So by the time you get to 8, 9, 10 manufacturers, you're ice cold, right? Like, the game, right? And then that same knowledge, when I first brought my samples, I came back. Now I knew the supply side. Oh yeah. I already visited their manufacturers, so that's why I saw some of those products, and I saw where they were cutting corners. Right, so like, if you don't got your own textbook, you can't learn. And when you ain't got nobody to teach you the game, it's like you got to learn the game first, right?
So we just gonna talk about his company.
So then what happened was when I first came, like my first thing was, all right, go into convenience stores, right? Because that's where everybody thinks that's where you're gonna make a lot of money. Gas stations, corner stores, bodegas, but you got to think that's run by the Arabs, the Indians, and East Africans or whatever. They ain't putting no money in your pocket. They're gonna take all of your stuff and they're gonna do it like consignment, right? Where they're gonna say, I'm gonna put your product in here. I'm gonna let you. If it sells, I may re-up next time. All right. We ain't make no money in consignment. Why? Because you're not driving sales at that point, and you ain't got no marketing budget, right? So 2 years in, I done bought this product. I ain't making no money. I'm going broke. People are looking at me even more crazy because they're like, yo, and you know, up north is different from the south, right? Up north, we got employees. Like, you may be a high paid employee, but you got a lot of employees, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, whatever you're going to do, you don't get a lot of ownership. It's not an ownership society. Like the south, a lot more is about ownership, right? So at that point, I was like, man, my business is failing. You know, I had a couple of business partners at the time. People start taking life decisions and all of that. Yeah. But I hated it, right? So I knew that I couldn't kind of go back to that. So I was like, yo, I gotta keep marching ahead. And I was fortunate because like my dad was like super big supporter, like not financially initially or whatever, but like him and my mom were like, yo, you know you hate law, you know you ain't gonna, you know what you're gonna deal with going back to that. So either you accept that and I don't want to hear no more complaints moving forward, or you figure your way forward.
Shout out to Mom just walked in off camera. Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't really have any choice but to kind of forge ahead, right? And as I forged ahead, that's when I started looking around. I was like, yo, I realized the gaps that I had. I didn't know where people made money, right? I didn't understand supply chain, and I didn't understand the business, right? So what happened was then I was able to get it. I looked and I was like, yo, who's paying for all? Because nonprofits, they were loving us, right? Like they're, black women, biggest supporters since day one, right? There would be no us without them, right? But it's not sexy, right? Because what happens when you're out? People first thing they're gonna ask you where you carried, right? You can't say, oh, this nonprofit here, Iris House and Pat, and or whatever. Like you can't tell them like them.
Validation.
You need validation, right? And so what I realized, I was like, yo, there ain't no money in convenience stores yet. That's a last part of the game because you need marketing. And I was like, let me just go and humble my own self and go government and go nonprofit. And that once I made that shift, boom, the business started to grow.
Strategy.
Yeah.
You knew
what I knew wasn't working, and the only way, and it was survival, right? Like I was either gonna have to, because by this time I'm having to take like just different survival jobs during the day and doing this at night, right?
That's what. And you're so stuck. I want to pitch to this person. I want to do it this way.
Yeah.
The ideas.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, like one of the things I kind of like to compare it to, it's kind of like given I don't got kids yet, I want kids soon or whatever. I stay safe, right? So it's like it's kind of like a kid, like you may like, or how I envision like having a kid. You may think that your kid's gonna be like a sports athlete, or you want to push him into sports, but your kid just may be good like with math or with science or whatever, right? So you can't force something onto your kid at one point if it's not natural. Mm-hmm. It's still success. Exactly.
Let's talk about it. How did that
being real broke, right? Because what happened is when you deal with government, it's a volume business, right? So you're going to make a small margin on a lot of product, right? So what that required was, you had to have a lot of upfront money because government, like, let's say I get a contract, right? 30 is what they say. Like 120, 150 is what they pay, right? Like I'm just getting a check right now from the state of Illinois, and I'll go into this, that these people ordered like 6 months ago, had to deliver all the product, had to buy up more product in the meantime, had to pay for all of the shipping and all of that, and I ain't getting paid for 6 months. And what happened was, so when I first made that shift, because at this point, I'm just trying to live, right? I'm trying to pay my rent, trying to keep my lights on, like, I'm just trying to really survive. So state of Illinois was the first state. I went and applied, won like $1 million and $2 million contract, right? And I was like, wow, now I can at least keep my lights on.
Yeah, ramen noodles.
Yeah, legit. Like, because you're not able, like, and one of the things I always say, man, is when your money is funny, you're never stable, right?
Money's funny. Nobody's laughing.
No, you ain't nobody laughing. Like you're just uneasy. All decisions are impacted. Like
and everything is a tough decision. Right. I get it.
And if you ain't ever been hungry, you don't know what that's like,
Right.
man. Like,
Did it say in there we're looking for minorities?
no. And this wasn't a minority contract. But what happened is, I had already had the supply side down, right? So I already seen kind of like what my competitors were putting in when they came to the government side. And at this point, it's just me, right? I'm outsourcing like my warehousing and my distribution. So I don't got like no big warehouse or anything like that. And I'm just like, I just need enough for me to be able to have a salary, right? All that other stuff would be good, but like the minimum.
As long as I get paid and keep the doors open.
Yeah, I'm like, this gives me 4 years, right? To be like, all right, I'm good now. I can take time to figure everything else out. And some stability. So I beat everybody on cost. Right?
With a better product.
With a better product, because what happened before then was the first state that I had been able to get into was Georgia. And I love Morehouse, right? Because when I first launched, Morehouse was like, we ain't got no money. Straight up, like, a lot of like, we ain't got no money in the community. But the state of Georgia buys condoms for us, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect you to the state of Georgia, and they can buy your condoms at least for our campus. Yes, because that state of Georgia relationship, 10 years in, she's still like, I call her like my big sister right now. Like I spoke at like new student orientation at Morehouse like last month or whatever. And it was she and I who was on stage together. The same woman that gave me my first opportunity, right? And what happened was she wasn't buying a lot, like, $300-400 or whatever. But what it was is she was like, if you can show that you can back up what you say, you can deliver good product, the people respond to it. If there's any other state that needs a recommendation, I'll give it to you. And you've proven yourself. And that's what then was allowed me to kind of open up that door for the state of Illinois, right? So a lot of times I tell people, like, earlier on, before you kind of really hit your stride, just focus on getting better at the game and focus on learning, right? Because what's going to happen is once you're really big, you're not going to want to make all of the mistakes that you should have been making early and often.
And right now we get game from Jason Panda of B Condoms, kind of talked about his transition from attorney to becoming a second time around business.
Yeah.
Back from failure now to now we're talking about something that a lot of business learning while
Yeah.
journey. Now you probably a couple of years probably looking like, okay, lights are barely on, but I do have a small thing on the table for Morehouse that created the opportunity that turns into fast forward back in the you gotta wait 6 months, but you don't know this yet.
So no. So even before then, right? I don't understand none of that, right? All I know is I'm looking for stable year over year, because outside of that, like, how I'm sure anybody that got a business knows, you may get one client today, but if there ain't no recurring client, you always tap dancing for the next check, right? Everybody got a slow period. So at this point, I'm just like, how can I get some stability? I don't want no job. I ain't trying to do all of that. This is what I'm going to do, but I just need some stable clients so I can count on me being able to do this moving forward. So at this point, I go and win the contract, but because, like, I'll tell you, my first year we made like $32,000 gross, not profit, gross, and I was working 60 hours a year, 60 hours a week. All right. Next year we only went up to 58. So it wasn't like we were making a lot of money. This was literally like a labor of love at this point, just trying to figure it out, right?
Let's say this is $1 million per-year contract.
Yeah.
But you're grossing
32,000,
60, almost 60,000.
and so what happens is at that point, it's not by chance that a lot of people start to lose hope and start to lose faith that, I'm really doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Talk about that. Listen.
So what happened was when I first won that contract, right? Like, my parents are older, right? Like, so they're retired. So my dad had a city job, right? So what happened was when I won that contract, I couldn't get a bank to lend me the money, right? I didn't know anybody else to lend to be able to give me the money as well. I needed to front the product, right? And I didn't know payment terms and all of that type of stuff. And the only person that I knew in my world that had the money was my dad. But it was his retirement, right? So I went to and me and my dad didn't have financial relationship. Like we had one argument maybe when I was 8 years old over $5. And, you know, two heavy personalities, love each other to death. He's my best friend.
Right.
But like as we got older, like, you know, we loved each other. You know, God rest his soul because he passed or whatever. But you know, we became like, it became from like father son to more so like I like you as a person, right? Like I appreciate you as a man, right? So what happened was, but I didn't have any other options, right? So I went home, I sat down, I was like, yo, Dad, I was like, yo, I don't ask you for nothing, right? But I was like, I need you. I was like, you know, you see what I'm doing, you see I'm giving my life to this, you see this is kind of like all that I'm trying to build. And I was like, we won the contract, you can see it here, but I can't get a loan to get the money. And he was like, what you need? It was a chunk. It was, you know, $40-something thousand, all right, just for product, right? And he was like, you know, if I can't put it in you, what can I do?
You heard
that. And my mom almost turned over because this is a dude with $5 of a full life or whatever, like going back at each other. And like my man used to drive a Geo Metro, like, you know, like one of them dudes that like saved every dollar that he made. My mom used to make 2-3 times what he made, but my man was like just real frugal when it came to his money. He didn't spend no money. But like, so
what's your last? Make sure we're not related. I'm making sure. Like they might be brothers. Really? What's going on? My bad.
But he was like, yo, let's go to the bank and I got you.
How much of a battery?
It's the only reason we're around today. Because without that, we wouldn't have been able to fulfill on the contracts. I wouldn't have been able to move into government. I was able to pay him back, like, you know, because, you know, like anybody that knows me knows I don't like asking people for stuff. I don't like just certain like traits or whatever that I had. So and it felt good as well being able to know that I was in a position to be able to pay him back and be able to also handle my word or whatever as well. But yeah, so that was real love right there. Yeah.
That's a hype bill. I'm about to wear the paint off of this thing today. Y'all bear with me. Right now, if you just tuning in with Days of Panda, man, we're talking about company start. Now I know the way you're moving out. Anything would love.
Yeah. And the interesting thing now is kind of like, because and I go back to this, you know, God rest his soul, without a George Floyd, there'd be no real movement of blacks within a lot of these spaces, right? And I talked to my mom about it, right? Like, she told me that there was maybe a period during like the 80s or like where like the doors opened up for black folks, right?
You get Rodney King, you get some everybody.
Yeah,
we want to deal. We love black people, businesses. Like,
but what happens is when that door closes, it closes for a good another 20 or 30 years, right? So we had already tried to get into retail, and everybody shot us down. They just weren't hearing it, right? And then what happened was when all of the protests and everything else, they looked up and then they're like, yo, we want to be able to add diversity onto the shelf. Yeah. Exactly. We all know the game,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
And so,
take it.
And so what happened was, you know, when the call went out, and you know, I was already at a point at which our business was scaling, right? And then we were literally the only one available, right? So then what it became was them 10 years of struggling that I had, that, you know, kind of like Noah building this ark, and everybody kind of looking at me like a crazy man, right? Nah. And literally every retailer across the country, all at one point, are now kind of figuring out how can they carry B Condoms.
So now this is how you end up in Walmart.
So then, exactly. So like right now, so then last year, right? Like we went and won a competition with CVS. So CVS wanted to bring us on, right? But around that same time, Walmart came knocking, right? And I looked at it and I was like, yo, Walmart's a much better opportunity. They were going to allow us to be able to, because I'd never been in retail, right? And I know, game done taught me, you're going to get humbled a lot of times in a lot of different ways. So create some time for you to be able to take them lumps and learn your mistakes. Because at the end of the day, the game is economic and it's about money, right? So they'll let you in, but are you going to stay in, right? Or what does stay in and eat, right? So what happened is I told CVS no at that point, right? And I told Walmart, I was like, yo, let's do this and let's test. So let's pick like 100 stores or so. So we picked 100 stores around Georgia, right? Because I'm based here in Georgia now. I'd already moved down, got me my warehouse right over here at Fulton Industrial. Huh? Yeah. And also, like, I've made so many mistakes along the way that I can't guarantee that just putting our stuff on the shelf is gonna work yet. Like, I know our people will be able to connect to it, but I already realized that convenience store thing humbled me. Right? Like, you got long memories, yeah. I took the lesson, so that's what we decided to do. Is we were like, all right, let's test, 100 stores across Georgia, different markets, some white, some black, some mixed income, some high income or whatever, some low income, and let's see kind of like where it resonates. And that's what we've been doing. So now, we were able to kind of like learn. We're not blowing it off the shelf. People are still learning about my brand. And one of the things I'm also seeing is there are things that I can't do at 100 stores that I can do in a year from now. All right. Like a year from now, we're looking at being in 10,000, 15,000 stores all across the country. Right. But I'm taking all of my lumps and I'm learning all of these different ways to be able to drive sales while I'm doing what I'm doing right now. So the good thing is, talking about Walmart expansion, talking about bringing on additional folks, whether it's Target, CVS, Rite Aid, Meijer, Safeway, Albertsons, Bilo, Winn-Dixie. We're going to be part and parcel. Like, we're going to jump to one of the top condom companies in the country overnight. And that's literally like where we're everywhere. And it's also when we're going to be in a position to where we're going to be ubiquitous with Black culture all across the country at that point. Yeah, and the interesting thing about the ambassador program is, we launched that like, let's say 3 weeks ago, and we're closing it out. We're gonna be taking on more people, but as of right now, we're gonna kind of like launch it officially and all of that other stuff. But we got about 55 students across 36 HBCU campuses. Right, so we're building a nice little army. Right, like to where like we're gonna make sure if you're Black, right, and that's why like what I'm saying, like there are gonna be things that I can do next year when we're in a lot more stores, breakfast for all of them, like because you can pay to play, what the game is. That's why. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a lot of like what I also had to kind of appreciate, right? I'm like, yo, I like, because a lot of times, when you don't know the game, you just think that like, oh yeah, so-and-so may know so-and-so. It's all cash is king, man. Everybody wants some money. You gonna cut a check, you'll be able to be anywhere you want to be whenever you want to be. And we're not in that position yet, because a lot of our investments now going into like whole same type of thing like before, like when I had to talk to my dad. Now I got to talk to the banks. We got all of these stores that we're looking to get into. We're going to need, this level of marketing and this level of support. And then what happens is overnight we activate the Black community, and then people are going to be like, yo, where these guys come from? They're everywhere. Yeah.
And it sounds like.
Yeah. Like for me, I can't lie. I'm excited, but I'm more so like humble, because I also know, who much is given, much is due, right? Like, and I can't even say if, but when I am able to kind of move forward in the way that I'm moving forward, I realize that a lot of power comes with that, right? And it's like, how can I make the most of this opportunity that I'm going to be given?
I think you come in on a great base. It's hard for people to fail to come in on a base when it's really about community. And you said it was caskets, condoms, care people out. You care people have a like people.
Yeah,
they do it regardless, right?
Yeah,
right.
No, it's true.
So let's make sure that they're safe and you're giving them a good product. On top of all of that, that's positive. Hit this hype bell again, bro, because it's big. That's big. It's actually, and then man, come on, bro. Like you're saving lives.
Yeah, legit. Like, and that's why, like, you know, anybody who's following, you know, follow B Condoms at B Condoms today on Instagram or whatever. You know, our XL, our Platinum Extra Large is actually the biggest condom on the U.S. market.
All right, so we can knock that gold box off the shelf.
It don't get no bigger, right? So folks want to be like, yo, how big is your big trust? Unless you really about that life, it'll be a little too big for you, right? But like, we got a large for everybody else, like. And then, you know, we also have our classic B Condoms as well, which is our kind of like our standard size. On our website, we also have like 10 other types of products. So we got the snugger fits, so like the sensitive, the thin, the rib, the, you know, flavored color. We got all of those because
like Baskin Robbins, all the flavors, you know what I'm saying? 32 flavors for you.
Yeah, we definitely got it like that because, you know, that's another thing working with government, man. Different states want different types of condoms, right? So
let's go through. Which one surprised you? Heard, oh, it hit you with the rib. You like, hold on. Did any of those surprise you?
Yeah, like I'll tell you, right? Like when you get into the flavored side, right? But what happens is depending upon the lifestyle, right? Like there are certain communities where, like, you know, they give oral with condoms on, right? So for that type of thing, you know, people want flavored condoms. Right, and then you get other people that just want to be able to spice it up. So you get some people that just may want a colored condom.
Oh, I was about to say they got spicy ones. That sounds crazy.
No, we got.
I get it, color.
Like, we got strawberry.
We got jalapeno.
We got chocolate.
Wait a minute. Okay, that's great. That's crazy.
You ain't. Oh, you didn't see a post last year. You know, we launched the chitlin flavor last Thanksgiving.
All right, this interview is over. This is a wrap. This will be the takeout. So when we do our cut, that's gonna be. You know, last year we launched a chitlin condom. That's gonna be the outtake. Y'all gotta stay tuned for the rest of the interview.
Nah, I'm capping though, but we created an image or whatever with that. Where we acted like, you know, because we got everything else, right? So I was like, yeah, you know, special edition, you know, 2 weeks only. Get your chitlin flavored condoms. That did go a little viral.
It's the outlet. That's what's up. That's what's up. That's funny though. I mean, but that's what happens when you really have people.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, you know, we. Let's have some fun with it. You know what I mean?
And make it and what's funny or whatever, right? Is like, you know, like Drake dropped that like certified lover boy. So like one of our last Instagram pics or whatever was like, you know, instead of having the lady looking pregnant or whatever, we just had folks holding condoms. That thing had over 1,000 shares. Right, like, so like you can see how when and I know there's gonna be a lot of things we can do when we're bigger or whatever, but the better we're able to mix culture with safety and everything else and imagery and video or whatever, like the better we'll be able to move our people ahead and then also educate people.
It's not counterculture. That's what I like it. And you're not ultra, it's not counterculture, and it's not offensive. And the make a funny post, it's not offensive, backlash. It's always gonna be 2 or 3 haters in the comments. But we can't worry about them. We worried about that whole 100,000 we've saved.
Yeah.
How good is it that you status talking about AIDS state alone? Earn is black, and you're able to per se to help with that.
To protect the culture. Yeah, for us, it's huge, right? Like I know, like when I first, because you know, like you mentioned, like I went to Morehouse for my undergrad, right? And that was the first time that I actually saw like it kind of like normalized black excellence, right? Like I didn't see black men dressing in suits and all of that where I came from. I didn't see black folks going on becoming a doctor or a lawyer. My mom, who used to run a nonprofit, was like the only black professional I knew, right? So it was like we didn't have a lot of models for that. Right. So I think like when I'm coming down to Georgia and I'm looking at it and I know kind of like what the incidence rates are, and I can look to say, okay, we can almost begin to localize our impact to make sure like it's no different than why, you know, I set up our office in Fulton Industrial. Right.
There's
like,
a lot of action going on. They need you. Right.
Like yeah. So it's like you if you really want to be kind of where the impact is, you can't ever leave. You still have to stay connected with the community. So that's why I love it. For me, I wouldn't want to be any other place. Because even like right now, most of our money comes from the South, right? Like I think what happens up north, and this is one of the things I talk about a lot of times, are like people that want to call you a mover, shaker. They want to do everything except cut you a check, right? Like, man, show me that you care by cutting me a check, right? Support my business through your business, right? And I just find it a bigger community for that.
Tell everybody one more time where to follow you, where to find this products, and if you got any college people, you know, we may have some campus presidents, dorm presidents, you know what I mean, watching right now, or back to tell them how to get in touch.
So if you're either an HBCU student or you go to a PWI anywhere across this country, we're taking on campus ambassadors. You'll be able to make money, get free merch, be able to represent the brand locally or whatever all around your community. You can definitely find the application. It's at B Condoms, just the letter B Condoms with an S. .com. You'll see the full application. If you're in Georgia, definitely go to your local Walmart. You know, you buy it, you'll see our little platinum packaging. It's B Condoms. Yeah, and this for y'all. Like, I they got family and all, but don't, give them nephews or somebody like that or whatever. And if you either aren't in Georgia or you're not a college kid, like just go to bcondoms.com, buy our product right there. We got quick shipping. You know, we get
price
things
points
out.
are awesome. I went check it out. Make sure I check it out. The price point. Got a better price. Like you said, I don't know. That's covered.
Yeah, we're definitely we offer a better product at a more competitive cost.
Literally got you covered.
That's
okay. All right. Make sure you check them out right now, bro. Appreciate you.
No. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you, man. That's it. All right, y'all. Tuned in. Stay tuned in. Of course, we got our mix coming up on the way. My homie DJ Decepticon about to light these airwaves up. So make sure you tuned in. My stream people, you know, radio.com got you covered over there because YouTube, other people got you covered. All right, before we get up out of here, man, having an urge to create something, a need, the blessing waiting to become a reality. That's our right here is doing. You know what I mean? So, y'all keep it locked to the next episode. We up out of here.